Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Entrepreneur's Life, our daily show that is all about, well, entrepreneurship and the life of an entrepreneur. And it's a very big pleasure for me to today have Jason Akatiff with me, a longtime friend and mentor of mine. Hi, Jason. How you doing?
Morning. How you doing, Phil?
Good morning. Yeah, it's very early for you in the US, right?
Yeah. It's 7:50 right now. I normally don't get out of bed in the morning until sometimes 9 o'clock. I'll do my initial calls and stuff like that. But you got me up and into the office this morning early, Phil. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Uh, I won't tell people what happened last time we had a morning call. Jason was there, but well, not exactly the office. Anyways, what do you think about waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and starting the routine of a good entrepreneur with journaling, working out, and all of that?
yeah, I mean, my everybody has a different morning routine. I love Hermosi. He talks about morning routines quite a bit, and everybody has a different one. And for me, my kind of meditation, peaceful time of the day is that those early morning hours. I'm typically awake by 6:30, and then 6:30 to 7:30, I'm kind of just having coffee in bed and relaxing and thinking about it, and then maybe starting to text some people around 7:30 or 8. And but I like that time in that morning to decompress, because I've got to go in and have a full busy day most of the time. So like I said, some people are up and at 'em, like my wife. She's up early, but for me, I love to just have a nice calm morning to start the day and think about what's the important things of the day.
That's a very, very good point. And you are working on important things, and your role is definitely, well, full of important decisions, right? Obviously, you're not working in the day-to-day management a lot anymore. Let's dive a little bit into what you're actually building, where you've started, and where that has taken you. Because just as a little intro, right? You have been very busy over the last 20 years or so. You come from the world of performance marketing, and I think you're going to share a little bit about that. But now you are at a stage of the game where a lot of people who start businesses, they think where you are now, this is where they want to end up, right? Because now you are actually actively purchasing companies, you are working in M&A, you are joining teams as investors. Crazy project we might want to touch upon as well is you building big ass yachts. And I'm not speaking about small boats, but these are like massive ships, right? So tell us a bit about how it all started. What actually got you entrepreneurship? What is it that you were looking for?
Uh, Both of my parents and my grandfather were entrepreneurs, so I had a cheat code that for me, I just saw the life that they lived. And I think the scariest thing about entrepreneurship is letting go and releasing from the job and the security of a job for most people. Now, there's a lot of people that actually have been entrepreneurs and said, hey, I really much prefer to work inside of an organization. But the scary part of being an entrepreneur, at least for me, was not that scary, because I did have that cheat code, and my parents and my family were entrepreneurs. So I watched them growing up, and I was like, okay, I see how this works. And that was always my ambition from a young kid.
So, I mean, I guess you've been working on your different companies for about 20 years now, right? Looking back at that, if starting was not the scary part for you, what did you find the most challenging over those 2 decades or so?
Well, I would say stepping away and saying I'm going to support myself with whatever my endeavor is, that's still scary. Even if you see it, it's still like a visceral emotional feeling to be like, how what if this doesn't work out, right? That's the record that you play in your head over and over again. So that's number one. And then number two, I think the second most scary part is hiring that first employee, where you're saying to yourself, okay, well, I'm making 40,000 a year, and if I hire an employee, they're going to cost 40,000 a year, so I make zero. And that's not how it works. You should, if you have the right endeavor and you've got the right business, you should look at that person potentially brings. If you were going to pay them 40,000 a year, let's say, to make it simple, they should bring in an additional, potentially 200,000 a year, to your bottom line. So if not, then you need to look at what is your business and what is it doing, and then do you have confidence that this person can bring that value to the table? And if not, then you need to think about how do you structure things in such a way, or how do you change your strategy, or how do you improve your efficiencies and so forth.
I remember a conversation we had in Bangkok a couple of years ago where you were talking about that first hire and what kind of person your first hire as an entrepreneur should be. Do you remember and
I
what's your
do.
take on this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first hire that everybody wants to make, at least in our world, is somebody that's going to make them more money, right? So if you're a media buyer, you're like, oh, I just need to hire another media buyer, and then we'll make a lot more money. For me, I think of business in the sense of systems, operations, um, KPIs, roles and responsibilities. And for most entrepreneurs that I find, right, you start doing a thing, it starts making some kind of money, and then you're like, okay, well, I just need to do more of this thing. And for many, many years, I did not hire operational people inside of the business. And as I look at things today, as I look at any new endeavor, the first part of the business I think about is operations. So a lot of times when I'm making a small investment into an entrepreneur, we were talking about a coaching, short form coaching business that I just bought 51% of. The entrepreneur is very good at the coaching piece, and he's very good at selling and getting clients in. But the first thing I'm equipping him with is an operations person to say, okay, what are all the onboarding systems? As we bring on more coaches into the business, what is the profile of the person we're looking for? And then, how do we onboard them? And then how do we get quality feedback from the clients that person is working with, whether it's through a survey-based system that's like an NPS score or something like that. Great. And then what is the editing systems? Where does that go into? What is the technology in order to support all that stuff and so forth? Because it's like, okay, we've got the clients that want the service. They're happy with the service, but now we need to say, how do we scale this thing? If we want, the way it looks right now, we can handle maybe 10 or 15 clients a month. So how do we make it handle 1,000 clients a month? And that's where you get into that operational piece. Oftentimes the entrepreneur is not an operational person. They're much better, they're more whimsical as a visionary, and they see the opportunity and they're chasing the opportunity. You need to be paired with an integrator that can build those systems and efficiencies out inside of the business, while you, the entrepreneur, or the entrepreneur you're investing is out chasing the dream.
You just very, very interesting. You just mentioned opportunities, right? So let's dive into this. What do you believe now in May 2023, right? Right now, what do you believe are probably the biggest opportunities for people who want to start and grow in business this year?
If we talk about the affiliate world in particular, I would say pay-per-call is really a big opportunity. Lead forms was what was big for quite a while, but as more vendors realize it takes a long time to call that data and your connection rates are low, I think the future is pay-per-call. And I'm seeing that as an ever-growing space. I'm seeing people in pay-per-call doing extraordinarily well, much like I've seen across many verticals over time. So we're doing a lot in that space. We do a lot in the mass tort space, which is legal lead gen. There's obviously a tremendous amount of opportunity in, again, I'm primarily focused on the US market. I see tremendous opportunity in anything as you look from a more macro level, and you see the economy deteriorating to a certain degree. You've seen the debt levels increasing. You see credit card debt increasing. So as we move along and people, subsidize this life that was supported potentially by COVID funds or whatever else it might be, they've reached a certain lifestyle level. And, as the economy changes, those COVID funds dry up. They now need to support that lifestyle level. So they're putting it onto credit cards. And we see a massive increase in credit card debt in the US. So anything that plays into the debt settlement space, anything in subprime, I think potentially shortly, we're going to see a resurgence of, buy my home for cash type stuff, potentially people that have to move and, want to do a seller carry. So there's all kinds of different spaces. As you look at where the economy is going, things don't stay the same. They change. So that's typically how I'm looking into the future. Another thing for us is anything that's government subsidized, we like as well. So solar, and these types of things.
Interesting. Okay. So you do a lot of acquisitions lately, right? You act as an investor, right? Sometimes, as you mentioned, you actually take a majority share. Obviously, understanding the business model that you get yourself into is very important. When you acquire a business, how do you evaluate the opportunity, and what is it that you're looking for?
For me, in past years, I've made many investments as your more traditional startup, tech startup, high flyer, hoping for a big return. Honestly, for me, those deals almost never worked out. I did have one deal work out with an old friend of mine. However, the stuff that it's interesting to me now is, where is there an amazing entrepreneur? They've got some kind of traction going. They have a business that's cash flowing and profitable, but not scalable from where they can see, because they don't have the expertise in order to scale the operation and the organization of it. And I think that's where I can be super beneficial, right? It's like, oh, okay, great. There's a thing going on here. It's making some money. Okay, how do we extrapolate? And the thing that I find entrepreneurs do a lot is they have the shiny bauble syndrome, which, oh, and I could do this, and I could do this, and I got to pay my bills, and whatever I've got to chase. And what they don't realize is every one of those things they chase distracts them from the most important and best thing they could be doing at the point in time. So, for me, I look more, and this is whether you're acquiring businesses or whether you're advising, being an advisor. I'm an advisor in some companies, but I'm looking for that entrepreneur that has the opportunity, that really can't see. Sometimes I'll go in and they're doing 5 things, and I'm like, okay, how does this work? How does this work? How does this work? How does this work? Okay, and so this one is way better from my view than all the rest of these. How do we go hard on this specific one? And then how do we build operational systems? And then how do we 100x this piece that would be extraordinarily profitable as we scale it up? So, I think people, especially from the affiliate world and stuff like that, really undervalue advisors, and being able to tell them, I've been where you are. You're chasing opportunity, but chasing opportunity isn't necessarily where the money is. The money is deciding where the biggest opportunity is, focusing on it, and then going all in on that endeavor. I also think that most people, you understand this. We talk about this sometimes, Phil. You understand this area, this space, but a advisor can come in and they see things like this, and that's just one small little piece, right? And they're like, okay, well, we could take this $20 million a year business and turn it into a $300 million a year business with not a lot of change. And I think the entrepreneur, money hustler, chaser person really they're not able to see that. So where an advisor, whether it's me, somebody else, can come in and give them advice on, okay, wait a second, let's just focus here. Let's build a list. Let's think of things quarterly rather than hitting F5 all day. What money am I making? Do we have a real business here, and how do we scale it? is, I think what somebody that's an advisor or whatever acquirer comes in and brings to the table.
Absolutely. I think that's very, very valuable advice. I just see a lot of people like being all over the place, and obviously I know that from myself as well. Sometimes you just have a lot of interests, right? And you believe you can do a lot of things at the business at the same time, but more often than not, obviously it is a distraction. More often than not, when you are an entrepreneur, especially at an earlier phase, you just don't have the processes in place, right? So you get totally distracted
Opportunity
because
costs, right? It's all
exactly.
opportunity costs, right? Like everything that you decide to do is opportunity costs and does not equal net zero. Like everybody says time and time again, focus, 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 right? And it's like, yeah, I'm focusing on five things. It's like, no, diversification is great once you have the infrastructure and the team and the systems to run one thing. Then and only then can you potentially go think about doing something different.
Absolutely. I've heard that the word priority does not have a plural, at least in the old Greek. I don't know
Right.
if anybody listening to this is Greek. Teach me if that is true or not, but it does make a lot of sense to me, right? There's only one priority. Okay, we have only a couple minutes left, but
Yep.
I wanna touch upon the idea, the concept of focusing, and then also mention that you do invest or engage and focus at quite a number of different projects. One of them is actually the one building yachts. So how much do you actually combine business and pleasure? How much do you think it makes sense? All that follow your passion kind of thing. And has that been something that made you more successful? Has made your life better, or was it more of a distraction?
Uh, I'm at a different stage in my journey, Phil, than I think a lot of early entrepreneurs, right? Like I'm looking for entrepreneurs that have been doing something for 5 or 10 years. They're extraordinary at it, and they see an opportunity, and it's a cash flowing opportunity. And I'm, maybe a strategic advisor or, you know, uh, potentially an investor or whatever it might be, right? Like I'm at a different stage in my journey. I'm not like, let's focus and get something built. A4D has been around for 13 years. So I run that as the CEO. And, we have amazing leadership and we're constantly growing and learning in that area. But my time is strategic advice on stuff. So empowering entrepreneurs that are amazing at a craft is really what I spend a lot of my time doing now. So I don't think of it as like me, I'm running this business and I'm also running 10 other businesses. That's not the case at all. It's very much, I'm putting a minimal amount of time from a strategy standpoint to help entrepreneurs grow, whether that's through investments or just through advisory work.
I see how you do that with the Croatian yacht company that you have invested in and that you're growing, right? And that actually, I find that very amazing how you actually support um, a young entrepreneur there who is actually leading the company, but at the same time, you're not just a person providing money. It's not even just smart money, but you are very much engaged in helping that company grow. So I think this is a very interesting model for people once they have exited the company and have the cash available, or they have put themselves into a position where you're at, where you're still running your main business kind of operationally, right? But you have additional resources in different regards. I think that's a very interesting plan moving forward as well. And this leads me to my last question here, because a lot of people who might be listening to this, they're like, okay, I want to build a company. And then one day I'm just done, right? I exit or whatever. And this is my dream life then. Obviously, I know a lot of people who have done that and it did not really make them happy. What would be your advice for setting goals at a later stage, and how do you plan it out for yourself? What do you want to do the next 20, 30, 50 years?
So I think a lot of that somebody has to get in touch with who they are and what makes them happy. I know for myself, uh, I love growth, right? Like I want to take on new things. I want to learn new stuff. And ultimately struggle equals growth, and growth for me equals happiness. So I'm constantly trying to do harder and bigger things because that's what really keeps me engaged and that's what makes me feel good. A lot of people, when they're in a moment of struggle, they feel like, oh, I'm in pain or I'm in whatever. For me, when I'm in a moment of struggle, I feel like, oh, now I'm learning. Right? This is uncomfortable. I like this. If it's comfortable for
Yes.
me, I'm like, well, this is boring and I'm not learning anything. But everybody's
Right.
different. I don't judge people by what makes them happy. But I think it's really important for somebody to come to grips and to come to terms with what makes them happy. Because for me, my thing is growth. But for somebody else, it may be doing charity work and giving back. For other people, it might have something to do with their spirituality and religion and spreading that. So everybody has different things that move and motivate them. But I would correlate, being able to do bigger and bigger things for whatever motivates you. I think a lot of people go through the entrepreneurial journey and they're like, oh, I have pain and I hate, business, but they just haven't put the right amount of time into figuring out how to remove themselves to a certain degree, put leadership in, go through that next level of struggle. And it is really a next level of struggle.
Thank you very much. That was great. I'm very much looking forward to see you grow even further over the decades ahead, right? Struggle a lot, and grow with that. Thank you for making me part of your journey, Jason, and thank you so much for joining us here for Entrepreneur's Life.
Sure, Phil. Thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, follow us for more. We're back tomorrow, and today this was Jason Akatiff. Thank you so much again, Jason.
Thanks, Phil.